Good morning, good afternoon or good evening. This is Miss Ferguson coming to you from the drama office, and this is a video for our Year 12s with regards to exploring the AS Component 2 Theatre Makers in Practice paper. So this video is going to be appropriate for if you haven't seen the paper before, or if you have seen the paper but would just like a quick refresh on what the structure of it looks like and some little mini tips in terms of all that to start with. But before I go through the paper with my trusty highlighter, I'm going to just show you and tilt up a second to direct you to my laptop and just zoom you in there in terms of if you would like to find further information to help with your course. Just a recommendation of this is the Edexcel Pearson website, and if you search through and you go through the A-level drama and find the course options, you'll come to a page that looks a little bit like this, and instead of going through all the you can either filter to exam materials, or where I'm going to go through and what I've downloaded today is to go to the specification and sample assessment tab, and then if you just scroll down you'll find this area here and you'll see sample assessment materials, or what we refer to as SAMs for short, and I've downloaded this paper here, the sample assessment materials for this, and there is another specimen paper here but that is on privacy lock, but this one is particularly publicly available and ready for you, and that's got a hell of a lot more information than I'm going to go through today, so it's well worth a download because it has got information about how things are marked, and it's got some commentaries on it, and it's more geared towards a marker or a teacher. However, it is very insightful and I thoroughly recommend it. So I'm just going to tilt you back down to the paper and just zoom you out a moment. I will say now, I apologise for the noise, however we are located next to the boys' changing rooms and it is nearly lunchtime and things might get a little bit loud, but I will try and keep going through for you. So you're sat in the exam hall. I hope you will have a double desk because you have resource materials that you need to flick through, and you will have a paper that looks fairly identical to this. Okay, so first of all you need to start filling in your details, your surname, any other names, just first names, the centre number 31290, but obviously you won't be writing in this colour pen here, your candidate number, and obviously you'll get help from your invigilator should you need to. So just double check first of all, and it has happened, so it's as silly as advice as this may sound, double check you have got the paper for drama and theatre, and it's the advanced subsidiary Component 2 Theatre Makers in Practice, and believe me, weird stuff can happen. This is obviously sample assessment material, it tells you that, but that would not be on your first ever try. It tells you that the paper is 1 hour 45 minutes and it's paper reference 8DRO/02. It tells you also that you should have a source booklet. Okay, I don't have an example of that today, but I do have the front cover copy. It just didn't seem worth printing that off, and we'll come to that shortly. And then you obviously ignore the total marks here, but I want you to read through the instructions and the information and the advice. Even though you will have read it a million times, it is so worth it in terms of keeping yourself calm, in terms of getting your mind in focus, ready for this paper. Not that anything will change from the information that we give you in lessons, but it is thoroughly recommended. Okay, so for this paper you must use black ink or ballpoint pen. Thoroughly important because your papers will get scanned and they are sent all the way around the country. And you fill in the boxes at the top of the page, as I have already indicated you should. You centre number and candidate number. It reminds you that for section A, answer one question, and for section B, answer both questions. So section A, we already know, is about our theatre evaluation, and for section B, we are currently studying the text Mackinaw. You will answer all the questions in the space provided, and there may be more space than you need. A little top tip: never feel like you have to fill the space necessarily and start over answering a question. That is just too tempting to do when you think that you need to fill that space. Little top tip is all papers are generally printed in multiples of 4, and that is because of just printing. And so it doesn't necessarily indicate that that's the amount that you need to write. However, if you are a large writer, etc., you would go down the usual format of requesting more paper from your invigilator and affixing it. The total mark for this paper is 48. The marks for each question are shown in brackets. We'll be looking out for that. And use this as a guide of how much time to spend on each question, not the amount of space. You're allowed your theatre evaluation notes form, which will cover on top of your 500 words that you bring in with this, with no pre-printed material or photos, etc. You are not allowed any performance text, so you will not be bringing in your copy of Mackinac or other set text if we choose to go on elsewhere in the future. So instead, all of the stuff is provided within this source booklet that from the section that you will be answering in this allocated question. Advice: read each question carefully before you start to answer it. It sounds really daft, but sometimes you think you're answering the question, but you're not actually answering the question. Okay, and you check your answers to make sure that you have done it all at the end. And it is recommended that you spend 45 minutes on section A and 1 hour on section B. So with that in mind, that bit of advice there, I would like you, before you do anything, okay, to write somewhere for your knowledge, not in an area that you can't write, but perhaps somewhere which maybe you can put a line through later. I'd like you to put the current time, when you're allowed to open the paper, I should say. I would like you to put the current time. I would like you to work out what time it will be in 45 minutes and what time it would be in an hour. So if we started the paper at 9, 9:45, 10:45. So you are rigid and stick to that guideline and do not go over. So within that you will also need to account for your planning time, etc., and use of the polo trick, but the polo trick should not let you down. Okay, so we then turn the page and we have section A for the live theatre evaluation. So just to stress again, we've got to answer one of the following questions, and you have a little good look there. But first of all, one thing that it definitely points out to you, it's still in bold, is you must point out this information here before you write anything here. So it just reminds you, and you should be familiar with this style of question right now, of that it's asking you to analyse and evaluate the contribution of, and generally it's almost a click and drop in of costume designer or other role within the theatre making process, and their use of something. So in this particular case it's colour in the performance you have seen. So rather than being tempted to go off on terms of materials or anything like that, you must focus on what it is asking you to do. So I would always, for the questions, I would always start in terms of highlighting the root of what it is asking for, and then when you come to write your plan, should you choose this question, you know that everything, every branch, every argument, every strand is going to be regarding this element. Then we have this second question, again similar format. We note it's 16 marks for the same, and this is an or. You need to, in this one, answer about stage space and how it created impact in the performance. Impact being quite an open term, so impact can be both negative, positive, in terms of evaluation, or just making meaning. But you've got to be specific in that meaning, and that's a little bit of a trick question in terms of it's been giving you quite a vague open response there, so I suppose the footfalls of it are that you could potentially give a vague response in that, because it's kind of leading you there. So when we're talking about costume designer with colour, so we're talking specifically about colour, so perhaps the dark shades or light shades, etc., or the shiny or matte material. And we also have this idea about stage space, so that is in terms of your set, your proxemics, your design, etc. Okay, then we have our material here for in order to then fill in our space. And then we finally go to section B. So for section B, this is about realising a performance text, and again, to reiterate, you're answering both questions this time, so there's no choice element within that. We are obviously at the moment studying Mackinac. Do not attempt to do any other one, because it has happened, and no, it will not serve you well. This question is worth 16 marks, so it may well be that you spend 30 minutes including planning time on this section and 30 minutes on the other section. So in essence we're talking 0.5 almost marks, etc. No, we're talking, done the double but the other way, we're talking 1 mark every 2 minutes almost, sorry. So with this one we're talking about a performer, so all of your response should be as a performer, not director or design element, so nothing about acting, lighting, etc. And it's about how you might interpret or portray one, and yes, hopefully they will have these boldened in the real thing, of the key roles. So key roles, non-minor, non-secondary, it has to be major roles within your extract. So the extract will be indicated as within the source booklet. Okay, so you can pick from that, okay, not out of the extract. But it does say that you should refer to the performance text as a whole. Okay, not that that should dominate your answer, but that should be a consideration. So you might well link to ideas and concepts that this perhaps foreshadows to or links to in some way, shape or form. So then you've got all your space for that. You can write your plan and then put your line through it should you wish to, which I thoroughly recommend, I should say. And that's your end of question paper. So then we have as a designer. So this is the second question. As a designer, discuss how you would use theatrical elements. So sometimes they use sort of convoluted language like this in order to essentially throw you off, but theatrical elements are just the elements that make theatre. So in terms of a designer, it stands to reason that these are lighting, costume, sound, etc., and the stage. Okay. And with this one, we're talking specifically about how it creates mood and atmosphere. So you're connecting this to this, saying this is one thing they did, this is how it created, and that should form the bulk of your answer within this support this from reference of the extract you have got again. And that should fulfill the criteria, and then we're at the end of the paper. So in conclusion, these are all the elements that you should be looking out for, and hopefully you've picked up some top tips in terms of attempting some questions. We are going to be going more through how we approach a question and our specific structure, if we haven't already.